welcome to the program. The Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, today wheeled out the well-used election campaign promise to build a rail link in Sydney's western suburbs, where both sides have been trying to woo swinging voters in key marginal seats in the lead-up to election day. Tony Abbott's pledge of the day was a $750 million plan for the Murray-Darling River Basin. But as he tried to focus on water policy, he continued to face scrutiny over the opposition's broadband announcement yesterday. Political editor Heather Hewitt reports.
The Gillard campaign is starting to think its fortunes have finally shifted. After some horror moments in what the opposition refers to as the soap opera, Labor morale has lifted this week for the first time in several days. The bookies say the punters are onto it too.
Julia Gillard has been sensationally backed, certainly in the last 48 to 72 hours, to the extent where this morning at 10 o'clock we took a bet of $200,000 at $1.50 for Julia Gillard and the Labor Party to be returned.
Julia Gillard was on the trail in Melbourne this morning, choosing the marginal Liberal-held seat of La Trobe to announce changes to welfare policy. This included new measures to give the jobless payments of up to $6,000 if they move to find work.
We will be introducing relocation bonuses to enable job seekers to move from their home location to another location in order to take up a job. As I've talked about during this campaign, there are parts of the country that are experiencing rapid growth and crying out for more workers. We want Australians to get the benefit of those opportunities.
But the biggest and most expensive potential vote winner was reserved for the western suburbs of Sydney this afternoon, with the promise of a $2 billion rail link. The locals may not believe it till they see it, but the Prime Minister says it will go ahead if the state government contributes.
This is, of course, good news to commuters. It will cut their transport times. It's also good economic news because as we ease the pressures of urban congestion and get better flow between these two economic centres within the Sydney Basin, that is assisting the economy, assisting the productivity and participation of this area.
The people of Western Sydney know that Labor has form here. Big promises before an election, broken promises after an election. All that you get delivered is glossy brochures but no infrastructure.
Tony Abbott headed bush today with Regional Development spokesman Barnaby Joyce to South Australia's Coorong wetlands, where the opposition leader was promoting the importance of water.
Water is critical because Australians need food to eat, people in Adelaide need water to drink, and the environment needs water to sustain it.
They announced a $750 million plan for the Murray-Darling River system to buy back 150 billion litres of water for the Coorong wetlands and upgrade irrigation infrastructure.
This will be the most significant inflow of fresh water into the Coorong in a decade, and it's a sign of our determination to do the right thing by the environment.
Mr Abbott is promising temporary water. Temporary water is exactly as it is titled. It is temporary. This is a policy that's like giving a Barocca for a broken leg. That the water that he is purchasing is only for one season.
Under our plan, there will be 100 billion litres of fresh water going into the Coorong. That will not happen under Julia Gillard's plan. That's it.
Mr Abbott,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
In fact, the news conference was dominated by an area Tony Abbott may have preferred to have left behind. The opposition's alternative to Labor's national broadband network announced yesterday, and his comments in an interview on this program last night.
You talk about speeds of up to 100 megabits per second. He would only guarantee a peak speed of 12 megabits per second under your plan. Do you know what peak speed is?
Again, if you're going to get me into a technical argument, I'm going to lose it, Kerry, because I'm not a tech head.
Today he was sticking to the line that he and Julia Gillard were somehow in the same boat on this one.
If you're not across the finer details of your own policy, how can voters trust you to run the country?
I simply repeat, Julia Gillard and I are not exactly Bill Gates. Julia Gillard and I are on a unity ticket here. Neither of us are exactly Bill Gates when it comes to discussing the finer technical details of telecommunications. But just because you don't now know exactly how every last detail of the motor car works doesn't mean that you can't drive it effectively, and that's my job.
You would have to, in the future, if you were Prime Minister, put a lot of trust into your ministers to run programs. If you're not going to be across the detail, would you be trusting them to deliver them and just hope that they do it right?
I'm not a control freak. Unlike Kevin Rudd, I'm not a control freak. Unlike Julia Gillard, I don't need to surf every announcement.
I trust my ministers. I want to run and have been running a traditional system of cabinet government. But as Prime Minister, your job is to get the big calls right. And the problem for Mr Rabbit is not that he doesn't know a micro detail. The problem for Mr Rabbit is that he doesn't get the big calls right.
Both sides are hoping their much publicised separate appearances at a community forum at the Rooty Hill RSL in Western Sydney tonight will give them an edge in the countdown to polling day. The campaign is now at a stage where there's no room for mistakes and every performance counts.